In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to enhance a drum loop with drum samples and with a bass part. Here's the finished product of a drum loop that's enhanced with drum samples. I'll play it first, you'll hear the drum loop alone, and then the samples will jump in. Okay, so as you can hear, those sampled snare drum and bass drum are perfectly synchronized with the drum loop below. That's what we're going to learn how to do. So let's clear some space out here. Get all those samples out. And you'll notice I have some groups here called snare and bass. I'm going to get rid of those too. We'll need to make those in order for this to work. So here's the process. Let's start with the snare. I'm going to drop a snare drum in the snare track. Doesn't matter where at this point. Let's hear it by itself. Okay. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to choose Edit, Copy, or Apple C. I'm going to get rid of it. And now what I want to do is make an edit group that will allow me to select the snare track and the drum loop track. We'll use tab to transient to hit the transients of the drum loop, and then we'll paste at each snare transient. Okay, so get rid of this. It's important that I've copied the clip of the snare first so it's on the computer's clipboard when I go to paste. Okay, now I'll make the group. I'm going to select these two tracks, snare, drum loop, and choose to create a group, which is here under track or Apple G. And it will default to the selected groups being part of the new group I'm going to create. You can always change that later. I could add or delete members. And we want this to be an edit-only group. We don't want the faders to move together. So let's call this snare. Say OK. Now whenever the snare group is selected here, when I select the timeline, notice it's selecting in both. That's what we want. OK. I'll make sure that tab to transient is enabled. Remember that snare drum sample is still on my clipboard. Tab, tab, tab to the first snare transient, and then I'll choose Apple V, which is paste. And you'll notice it pasted that drum loop right on the top without taking away anything from here. So I'll do that a couple more times. Tab, and I'll choose Apple V, paste. And if I press play, we should hear both parts together now enhanced. Simple as that. And do the same thing with the bass drum. Copy the bass drum in, make a copy, make a group that includes the bass drum and the drum loop, do the tab to transient. Okay, let's try the same thing with a bass part or a synthesizer part. Okay, here's our finished product, and I'm using structure. I'm using a sampled bass sound, and it sounds like this. Okay, perfectly synchronized with the bass drum. This even works if you're not in bars and beats mode, which is nice. For a live recording, you could enhance just by using tab to transient. So let's clear out our space. We'll do the process one more time. I'm going to undo this group. Get rid of all of these. I'll leave one bass note in here. With the groups disabled, I'll select it, choose Apple C, copy. I've now copied that one MIDI note. Now I enable the group. I've already made the group. It includes both of these. We can check it out. Here's my group settings, synth and the drums part, and it's an edit group. Now I click down here and do my tab to transient. Make sure that's in tab to transient. That's a snare. I think this is another bass drum, and I choose Apple V or paste, and it pastes that synth note. Now I can just continue on. Tab, 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 Apple V, Apple V, Apple V, and it should be all together. Easy.